Back to one of our top stories now, and China overnight has issued a stern warning to Australia in the wake of this AUKUS deal, warning that Australia is on a dangerous path and essentially accusing the government of warmongering. This is just hours after the historic $368 billion AUKUS deal to acquire nuclear-powered submarines. Now, that won't happen till 2050. We'll get the first one in about a decade from now. Joining me live now from Melbourne is the Shadow Finance Minister, Jane Hume. Let's go to the cost of this. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? We've heard both sides describe this as modest, but how is it $368 billion? That is, I think, more than triple the price of the French submarines. Is that something you'll be asking questions over? We kind of need this itemised a bit, don't we?
Laura, certainly $368 billion sounds like an enormous amount of money, but it is something that is going to receive bipartisan support, and it's going to be implemented over many, many years. I think in the immediate term, we've heard that there's going to be about $9 billion in the forward estimates, the next 4 years or so. About $6 billion of that is offset against the attack class submarines that were cancelled. And there is another $3 billion that is coming from defence, from other items of the defence budget, and that they will be detailed in the Defence Strategic Review. I think that is something that is worth looking at. We don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul here. We want to make sure that we're enhancing our defence capabilities, not detracting from them. So there will be some scrutiny, certainly, of that. Yes, it's an enormous amount of money, but we understand that this is the price you pay to maintain peace in our region, which is the priority of all governments.
In this AUKUS deal, I mean, this is a partnership with the UK and the US. You'd think that they'd give us a little bit of a discount, right? Because it's in their interest for us to have these submarines.
I don't know whether discounts is really the way that it works. Certainly, this is possibly the most important strategic partnership that Australia has ever undertaken. It was obviously announced by the coalition and is now being implemented by a Labor government. It has bipartisan support, which is so important, in fact, so fundamental to its implementation, because it is such a long-term project that is going to take place over generations and indeed over many governments of very different hues. That's why that bipartisan support is so important. But let's be very clear, the AUKUS agreement would never have taken place in the first place if it wasn't for a coalition government who authored it and instigated it under Scott Morrison. But more importantly, we demonstrated our commitment to shipbuilding and with our shipbuilding program over the last 10 years, and by demonstrating that we are very serious about our defence and strategic capabilities by increasing our defence spending to over 2% of GDP back in 2013, after it went down under a previous Labor government to only 1.56% of GDP.
Well, how are we going to pay for it? And are we paying a premium for there to be a local jobs component?
Well, certainly a local jobs component is important. That was part of the commitment in the previous government. Certainly in WA and South Australia, we want to make sure that those 20,000 jobs are maintained, that those 20,000 jobs are also not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector. That's really important so that we grow that capability and also our capacity, our strategic capacity. But this isn't a make-work program. This is a defence program. This is about defending our country and maintaining peace in the region. That's the most important part of this decision.
OK, let's talk about power prices now. The Energy Regulator has confirmed what we're all fearing and told what to expect, and that is that power prices from July 1 are going up on the East Coast. On average, about 20%. It's more in some parts.
It's about 21% for households in Queensland, southern Queensland, New South Wales and South Australia, and potentially around 25% or so for businesses. That's around 600,000 Australian households and 100,000 Australian businesses that will be affected by that new default market offer, which is so much higher than anticipated. It's about the same amount that we anticipated. But today we've just heard from Victoria too. The Victorian default offer is going to be around 31.5%. for households and 33% for businesses. So this is affecting the entire East Coast, and this is unacceptable from a government that promised a reduction in power prices of $275. Now Australians who are going to pay for this winter. I fear for those older Australians or those on low incomes that will simply have to turn off the heater during winter because they can't afford the energy bills. That's the human cost to Labor's failure to manage the energy market.